Afternoon, everyone. My name is Jared Trotter. I'm one of the application engineers here at Concepts in Production, and today we're going to be looking at the second installment in our What's New in SOLIDWORKS 2017. The first installment we looked at what was new in part modeling, so we'll look at assembly modeling in this portion. One of the first enhancements that we'll discuss is the convert to bodies option. So a lot of times you're dealing with very complex assemblies and you want to simplify those either for your own purposes or because you want to preserve that to be sent to someone else. So coming over here to SOLIDWORKS, we have this assembly that's open already, and within this assembly I'm going to direct your attention here to this frame part. That's one of the parts in this assembly of this transmission box. So we'll go ahead, open up that assembly, and more specifically this frame plate. So this is actually going to be sent to a partner, to a customer. And looking here at the feature tree, there's a few different features there that aren't necessarily needed for the person that's going to be receiving this part. Just toggling this on, you can see these different sketches that we want to actually maintain. And new in SOLIDWORKS 2017, via the right-click option, you can actually go to the part level in this particular part, scroll down, and there's the convert to bodies option. And once you do a complete rebuild of that, you should be able to select that, save it. And then once you do a save as option, you have this little toggle here to preserve the reference geometry and sketches. We'll just go ahead and rename that so that you guys can see the difference there. So we'll go ahead and save, and you'll notice that the feature tree is much tidier. You only have this one feature here, but you also have this sketch because this part was based off some sketches on some other parts. And once we toggle back over to the drawing, we'll go ahead and scroll in here. You can see that that is now updated, and in the assembly as well, all those parts have been updated. All the mates have been maintained, so it's a very quick transition there using that convert to bodies option. Come back over here to our PowerPoint. Next thing that we'll look at is some enhancements to the surfacing. Taking a look at the wrap tool, what we have now is that we're not as restricted as we once were, whereas we had to select cylinders and cones, and there are also some offset options, being able to offset the curves on a surface. So we'll close out of these parts that we had open. We'll take a look at a part where we can look at surfacing. So taking a look at this forearm cuff, a lot of times you'll want to put a logo onto certain parts, so we'll take a look at an example of that. This being a part for the Myomo part that you saw there at the outset. And what we're going to do is just come to our Features tab, choose the Wrap tool, and before we could only wrap these logos or text onto cylindrical surfaces or one surface. But now we have the option to put those onto multiple ones. So just selecting those two with this option to wrap onto a spline surface. We'll go ahead and click OK there. And we can see we've got this nice logo that's wrapped. And if you have Instant 3D turned on, you even have the option to take that logo and move it around any way that you see fit. So it'll update dynamically there, and you can see the different changes. Go ahead and close out of this one, taking a look at this finger cuff to look at this offset on surface option that's been enhanced. We'll just roll back here in our feature tree, and now new in 2017, the offset on surface, we'll just set that to 7.0, and you can see that by selecting any of these edges here, you can offset those dynamically, and if you were to exit out of the tool and pre-select one of these faces and then do offset on surface, then it offsets all of those edges. Conversely, if you wanted to offset those in the opposite direction, when you do offset on surface, you can actually reverse the direction of those. Very versatile in that respect. Now moving on, there have been some enhancements to sheet metal as well. There's now the option to do 3-bend corner treatment, as well as some enhancements to normal cuts. So that's going to be an enhancement that makes your workflow a little bit easier and makes your models more intuitive. So let's close out of this one. We'll take a look at, first of all, this 3-bend corner. So before it was only possible to do 2 corners, but now we can actually do 3. So editing this feature, this corner relief option, what you'll do is go to corner relief like you normally have, and you can select the 2-bend corner or 3-bend corner. Establish the scope of it. In this case, it's the entire part, and then just tell SOLIDWORKS to collect all of the corners there for you. Go ahead and click OK there, and just go ahead and take a look at this drawing, and you can see the various types of cuts or types of corner relief that we can use for that, using that new 3-bend corner option. Now there's also an enhancement that's been made to the normal cut, like I mentioned. So let's take a look at this assembly, and you can tell by these 2 rods that go through this curved bracket type part that this isn't quite what we want. You see, we've got some overlap right here that's been cutting, into this little part. So let's open that up to see where that normal cut feature was actually made at. And up to this point, normal cut was made by projecting a sketch onto a surface and then cutting it. So let's just look at that feature. Right here you can see that this was a hexagonal shape, and then you have this circular profile here. Now in 2017 you have the option to optimize the geometry. So that's going to take into consideration something that could actually pass completely through this material and change that profile just a little bit. So now you can see, rather than coming to that sharp edge, there's now this optimization here that will allow that hexagonal part to pass completely through. And the same on this side over here. It's more of an elliptical shape, but it allows that circular profile to go through. So with that update, you can see that that is now a much better profile that's more in tune with what this person probably wanted. So we'll exit out of these, and just coming back over here to our PowerPoint, looking at assembly modeling. There have been some enhancements there with configurations and group components that's going to make your feature tree a lot easier to see. And there have been also enhancements with placing your different components when you're mating. So go ahead and open up that assembly. And as I said, when you're working with large assemblies, particularly looking in your feature tree, there can be a lot of information that you have to deal with. Sometimes it's useful. For instance, if you have multiple configurations of a part, multiple display states, you may want to see that over here. But if you only have one configuration and one display state of those parts, then this just becomes a lot of clutter. So now the new option is via a right-click menu on that top level assembly. You can go down to Tree Display, and you have the option to not show the configuration or display names if only one of them exists. So then that makes your feature tree much tidier if you just have that one configuration. Now another option comes into play if you have multiple parts, so multiple instances, say, of this little screw here. Via that right-click menu again, going back to tree display, you can come down and select group component instances. And what that will do, we'll scroll down and can see that the icon changes just a little bit. When you expand it, you see that all three of those are together, and this is really useful if you have these different instances of one component spread really far throughout your feature tree. So now they're just here all together, all in one place. Now when it comes to mating, a lot of times we have trouble if we have several components and we need to orient them in a certain way. Now new in 2017, SOLIDWORKS takes into account where you make your selections. So if you were to make two places coincident, click on them in two particular regions, then SOLIDWORKS honors that by moving those components coincident exactly where you clicked at. And we'll go ahead and make these concentric here. And in terms of mating, there's another enhancement that's been made. That's going to be obvious when we make this conical face. And as I said, a lot of times we have to reorient, perhaps using the Move with Triad button. But notice when I select these two conical faces and then click coincident, SOLIDWORKS automatically reorients that part so that it's conical and it's flush with that face. So that's going to save you some time in terms of reorienting your parts and make mating significantly easier. That's not all though. Let's take a look now at this subassembly for this motor. And this particular subassembly is full of imported parts. And sometimes when you're working with an imported part, you may want to be able to actually edit that, which hasn't been a problem. We can easily go to our right-click menu here and go to FeatureWorks and do Recognize Features. So now we can actually create an entire part with a feature tree that's complete, so that we can actually edit those just like any other feature. But the change now is that when you run Recognize Features and you have your nice features over here, and SOLIDWORKS takes note of those face IDs, so that when we come back over to this subassembly, we can see that all those face IDs for this part, all of them have been maintained. So that'll save some time in terms of reapplying mates. And one more enhancement is going to be when you actually want to save an entire subassembly as a part. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll save this entire subassembly there as a new part, and new in 2017, with preserving the geometry references. We'll go ahead and save that. And you'll notice that when we toggle back over to our primary assembly here, we can actually go in and replace the component. So let's go ahead to this upper level assembly here to replace components with the part that we just created. And what we're going to see is that all of those faces are still matched to each other, so you don't have to worry about reapplying those mates when you go ahead and save that subassembly as a part. And of course those changes propagate not just to these upper level assemblies, but also to the drawings as well. All right. Close out those. And the next enhancement has to do with what's called asset publishers now. Asset publishers and speed pack enhancements. So as I open up this next part, I'll tell you a little bit about the asset publishers and what that means. Get this layout here. So a lot of times you'll have these fairly large sub-assemblies that you're working with that you want to bring in to another assembly, and Asset Publishers makes that really easy. We'll notice when we go to insert a component, what we're going to use is, for instance, this spur conveyor. And you'll notice a bunch of purple dots that are here on the layout. These are the magnetic mates that are programmed into your asset publisher. We'll take a look at how to set those up here in just a moment. But what you can do is set these sub-assemblies up such that when you insert them, they automatically snap to these predefined points on other sub-assemblies. So it's just a click and play type deal right here, where you can bring in those components. We'll bring in a second one here, and you can just snap, or if they're not quite in the right configuration, you can just hit the tab key and then it orients them 90 degrees with respect to where they were. And it's very easy to move those around. So if you have an asset that's already been put in, you can easily drag and drop to place it somewhere else. And it's really easy to make copies of them as well. So for instance, this little robot arm that we've got, we'll just hold down the control key and go ahead and place that. So we can have those around. And once again, that's just dragging and dropping, moving these around to organize them the way that we want. And when we go to our speed pack, I'm going to use the shortcut key for this, which is the Alt-S key. You can see that all of these little sub-assemblies here are speed packs. We see these simplified versions of the sub-assemblies here, which is going to really increase your performance if you're looking at a really large assembly there. So let's have that. And let's just take a look at one of these sub-assemblies here for these published references. So going to our configurations, we'll make this configuration the active one. You'll see it, there's this published reference option here. Adding the feature, we take a look at what that feature looks like. For a sub-assembly, you can just establish the ground plane, namely what surface is it going to come in on. You can establish an offset of that if you like, making it a little bit higher off the ground if you want. And you set up the connection points where it'll connect to other sub-assemblies. That's going to be those purple dots that I pointed out a little bit earlier. And you also have the option to create a speed pack right then and there. So then that's all created just in this one property manager. Now we said that there were updates to speed packs as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at these speed packs. Now you also have the option to include sketches and reference geometry in your speed pack. So that'll be good for establishing where you want these speed packs, where you want these asset publishers to go in at. So with those enhancements, that's going to make your workflow quite a bit easier. And when you have these large layouts like this, it'll be much easier to apply those mates and get to a point where you can maximize the space that you're using. The last enhancement that we'll talk about is the Mate controller. Really quickly, is creating configurations from Mate controller positions. So if you'll recall, the Mate controller was introduced back in SOLIDWORKS 2016. So we'll go in here and take a look at this placement robot. And going into the Mate controller feature, we'll just add that. And now there's this little option here to add configuration. So for each of these positions that have been established, you can go in and make a configuration out of each one of them. And it works just like any other configuration. We come over to the configuration tab and we see that there they are, each one of them. And one way in particular in which this is useful is if you wanted to go to your drawing and show the different positions that your assembly could be in. Like I said, it works just like any other configuration. You can establish those for each one of the drawing views that you bring in. That'll be the conclusion of this webinar. Thank you for joining us.